Hello everybody, welcome to our presentation on transition year in the King's Hospital. My name is Noel Cunningham and I have the privilege of being TY coordinator in the school, and for the next 15-20 minutes or so I want to give you an overview of what transition year is like here in the school. So we get started straight away. The presentation will primarily try to give you a sense of what transition year is about. A breakdown of all the details of what is in the year can be found in the TY booklet, which you can find on the parent info section of the school website. So at any stage you can go back and refer to that for any of the details. But I want to spend this time giving you more of an overview of what the year is about. And in doing so, we're going to break it up into three different strands. So the aims of transition year are as following. There's personal development, orientation towards the world of work, and foundation for the leaving certificate. And we want to look at each of those in detail. So we're going to begin with personal development. But before I move on, it's probably worth saying that to a certain extent, these are actually slightly contradictory aims in that when you're looking for the Leaving Cert, you are being guided towards a set of results that you need to get to prepare you for college or further education, whereas in further development, we're looking at maybe valuing the student away and apart from the academic sphere. So it's basically, we don't want a student who's not particularly academic may have a sense of not having a great opinion of themselves as a result of that. And transition year is the one opportunity we get to move away from that. So Albert Einstein is supposed to have said a lot of different things. The first thing we should probably bear in mind is he also said, if I knew I was going to be quoted so much, I'd have kept my mouth shut a lot more. But the idea here is important. So much of what counts in an individual in relation to what's important about life, you can't put a number on it. But the problem is it's so easy to put a number on an exam result that's what we tend to focus on. So I mean, if you just take a look at any number of characteristics here that could be used to describe a person. These are not characteristics that necessarily get recognized in school as much as they should. And fourth year is an opportunity for us to try to undo some of that, to try to restore some of the confidence that maybe a student has lost as a result of being in the academic, I suppose, rat race for want of a better term, but I don't want to be too derogatory. I am sort of part of the system as it is. We know that within the academic sphere, because we can measure things, as I was alluding to earlier, that's what we tend to put the emphasis on, but we want to move away from that in transition year. So there are a number of different skills that every student brings to the table. We want to spend this year, first of all, identifying what they are. The student themselves might not even be aware of some of these skills that they possess, and secondly, hopefully getting them to develop them. The last thing we want is for people to be comfortable throughout the year. We want, if anything, for people, my little mantra is you need to step outside your comfort zone. So you don't want to look back in the year and think, oh, everybody else has done these enormous has achieved these enormous or has overcome enormous challenges, and I stay within my comfort zone. We want to push people as much as possible to find the challenge that they're going to find exciting and that therefore they're more likely to get involved in and see through all the way to the very end. So we usually kick off the year with a series of team building workshops, and this is just to try to get students to know each other. We'll have a lot of overseas students. We will be mixing all the classes up, and we basically want the students to talk to each other. It's quite possible that there will be students here who have not spoken to another particular student in the 3 years that they have been in the school to date. So we want to mix up all of the relationships, open it up as much as possible, and get people working together. So, setting all of that aside, let's look at the actual timetable itself. How does it differ from the traditional school timetable? Well, we have a number of different blocks within the timetable that involve non-academic challenges or modules, if you like. So one of them is known as the practical block. It's a double period each week, and students will choose from one of the following options. Now, these change from year to year, but they'll give you a good sample of what's available. The student will do this for about 5 weeks, and then after 5 weeks, they'll move on to another module, and they get to choose which of those they want to do. So over the course of the year, they should have taken on about 5 or 6 of these different options. So just again, to give them a sample of different activities and challenges that they would not normally come across in the normal run of events. TY drama is another big part of the year. It's one of the highlights for anybody who gets involved. The students prepare for this all during the year, and they prepare for a big production towards the end of the year. It's a competition. It's a national competition. It used to be that we just had one group. This year, for the first time, it has expanded and we've got two groups. So the popularity of this has just grown, and you find it develops a confidence in the student that they would never have predicted, that the parents would never have predicted. So you get students who are quite, what would be the word, maybe a little introverted, maybe a little unsure of themselves, and it develops their sense of confidence, their sense of public speaking, and it builds up relationships with their peers. The enterprise block is another set of 2 periods. It's another double class that a student has each week. But in this case, what the student does is they commit to one of these different modules and they stick with this module throughout the whole year. So basically, it's usually project-based, and you're developing the project and you're developing your planning skills. And you're developing your teamwork. And usually, as I said, you're leading up to a big project that gets developed at the end of the year. One of these projects is Junkature. This is where students will look at recycling and using recycling products for fashion purposes. And again, this leads to a national competition, which gets, I think it's in the Helix every year. And we've had students most years who become part of that. Okay, moving on from there, another option is the EU studies. Miss Malcolm is very heavily involved in 4th year, and she likes to promote all that is good about the year. She likes the students to get the very most of their commitment to the year. If they commit to the EU studies block, they find, once again, it's one of their highlights for the year. There involves trips to Strasbourg. They involve meeting EU ambassadors. And again, they get to represent their country in various different guises. The life skills block is yet another block that we have in the school timetable. This consists of 3 single periods throughout the week, and students will rotate from one of these modules to the next. Again, it can change slightly from year to year, but it gives you a good oversight of what is involved in this particular module. We have a new option coming in this year for the very first time, where students have the option of looking at some of those blocks that I spoke about earlier, the enterprise block and the practical block and the portfolio, which we'll be talking about later on. They have the option of coming out of that and engaging in the following. If they want to specialize in a sports strand, or if they want to specialize in the performing arts strand, they have the option to sign up to it. So their details we will be passing on in an email which will go out to all parents. It is currently being finalized, so I'm not going to say too much more about it, but you can get the details from either Kerry O'Reilly for the performing arts or Derek Mabry for the sports strand itself. Goshka is one of those programs which I think every student should either commit to in 4th year or should have a good reason for not being involved with in 4th year. It's run by Miss Murray and is very, very successful. If you're not familiar with it, simply go to goshka.ie. There are 4 strands. It's basically a challenge that a student takes on over the course of the year, and it can develop into beyond 4th year. We get students in 5th and 6th year. And basically, we're asking the students to sign up and make a commitment. Some of those different strands involve community involvement, developing a personal skill, getting involved in physical recreation, or taking part in an adventure journey. And they will keep a journal of their activities throughout the year, and it gets rewarded at the end of the year with a bronze award. You can then develop that into a silver award, and you can develop that into a gold award. It's very, very highly recommended, and it's very highly valued by any students who get involved in it. Mondello Early Drive for Schools is a program that we offer also to students. Every year they get taken down to Mondello and they spend the day being introduced to driving if they haven't done so before, with obviously a special emphasis on the safety aspect of it. And again, they're going to be trained by a professional down there. It tends to be one of the highlights of the year. We have a special emphasis in 4th year on either community work or climate awareness or environmental work to some extent or other. So this is just an image of students a couple of years ago in the national climate protest that was taking place. So it's one of the themes that run through the years. There are competitions, challenges, projects. And I'll come back to this at the very end. We're encouraging the students to get involved as much as possible. But ultimately, whether they do or not is really up to themselves. So that will be one of the themes in fourth year, is you get out of it as much as you put into it. So samba drumming is something that we do every year. It's another little option we have, and in this case you find these students themselves are getting involved in the actual climate protest. Mr. O'Connor, another teacher who's very heavily involved in transition year. Again, there's all sorts of different environmental projects. This is one from a couple of years back involved with environmental compliance. Here's another one Mr. O'Connor also coordinates, which is the green flag competition. Maybe competition is the wrong word for it, but the school has a number of green flags that we have been working on throughout the years. And again, students in fourth year are very heavily involved in that aspect of it. So community work, this is each class group is asked to sign up to 1 or 2 challenges where they can raise awareness for local communities. So this is a car wash from a couple of years ago. This is another little idea that took off. It was very popular, where there was a care home and the students got in contact with the residents in the care home and it just built up an ongoing relationship with them, and as part of that they were asking them what music they enjoyed when they were young, and then they fundraised both for the record player and for albums and got to present it to the residents in person. Usually on a Thursday afternoon we have 3 periods which either involve a trip out or possibly a visiting speaker coming into the school. So in this case they can go to a variety of different museums, or in this case it's Croke Park. This is Dublin Zoo. So approximately 1 in every 3 Thursdays we go out on a trip, and 2 out of those 3 we've got a speaker coming in to talk to the students about a range of different issues. This is an image that people congregating together, which is kind of hard to get your head around in these times. Similar here, we have legal studies. This is one of the options in the enterprise block, just like drama I was talking about earlier, which went from 1 class to 2 classes. The legal studies has been 1 class for years, and in the last year it has basically doubled due to popular demand. So we've got a couple of outside legal studies experts who come into the school and I suppose just teach the students all the different aspects of the law. Some of the students themselves are interested in taking on law as a career, but some of them just want to find out more about it. I suppose it's just, again, to develop themselves and their own awareness of the world around them, which is one of the things we constantly encourage. Okay, quick review of where we were going from the very beginning. We said there were 3 strands: the personal development, the orientation towards the world of work, and foundation for the leaving certificate. So now we're looking at orientation towards the world of work. Work experience is one of the big highlights of the year. It happens, we'll give you the exact date in a minute, but it's a 2-week period just before midterm. We prepare students via the guidance department for this from the very beginning of the year. So it's something that students need to get their head around. In fact, they really should be getting their head around it from right now. So in this case, the 2 weeks we're talking about are from Monday the 7th to Friday the 18th of February. That will be in 2022, if I'm right, getting my years mixed up. But I said you can do this in 1 2-week block, or you can do it in 2 1-week blocks. So basically you can go to 1 employment for 2 weeks, or you can go to 2 separate employments for 1 week each. Ms. Cummins is the person who coordinates all of this, and she will be communicating with the parents and the students shortly. Most of the communication is with the students themselves. We expect the students to be taking on the responsibility to check their emails, to reply to emails as she provides opportunities. So she coordinates the work experience, but there are also a lot of official TY programs outside of the 2-week block. So you get hospitals, you get various different businesses who put on work experience programs, and the students have to apply for this themselves. As Ms. Cummins becomes aware of this, as these come on stream, she will forward the information onto the students. They then get to decide whether or not this is something they would like to do or not, and if it is something they would like to do, they need to apply. And as much as possible, as I said, we encourage the students to do this because it's part of the work experience process. If you are engaging in work experience, you must communicate with Ms. Cummins to let her know what it is you are doing for insurance purposes. She will talk more about this when she sees the students back in September. Apart from work experience, there's a lot more that goes on in preparing students for the world of work, so you can read through some of these various different opportunities that we provide. And it's also important to say that preparing for both towards the world of work and for senior cycle itself, it doesn't finish in fourth year. It's something that goes on beyond fourth year itself. So well into fifth year, again, you have a variety of different opportunities that the students have to engage with this. It's something that we constantly want to be in the back of their mind. It's not something that we just want to do in one day or 1 week and tick the box. It should be something that they're always building towards. Moving on from that, the school library is one of those, it's just a facility that the school has that's sometimes maybe not appreciated as much as I think it could be. And certainly in fourth year, we have the wonderful school librarian, Miss Kelly, who again is just one of these people that you just, if you wanted to design somebody to be passionate about fourth year, it would be somebody like Miss Kelly. So this is not just some place where you come to read a book. This is somewhere where fourth years come to hold meetings, to get involved in workshops, and generally to share their passion and enthusiasm for the whole program. And if there's anything Miss Kelly can do to foster that or to help students get involved, she would only be delighted to do so. Again, she will be speaking to the students herself when she sees them in September. One of the things that she has created is a creative writing workshop. This is Dave Rudden, a well-known Irish young adult writer, and every year he puts this on for students. We encourage students to sign up. Obviously, the last year or two, it's been done via Zoom, but next year, hopefully, it will be in person once again. Finally, we're looking at, back to our 3 strands, it's the third strand, the foundation for leaving certificate. And I mentioned earlier on, this conflicts ever so slightly with what we're talking about earlier in relation to personal development. Here is where we've got to say, listen, we don't make the rules. The rules are we need to prepare students to do as well as possible in their leaving certificate exams. And that really should, if not even start in fourth year, it starts in first year, but certainly fourth year should be a part of that. So we want to move away from the sense that fourth year is not academic. From my perspective, it's not primarily academic, but at the same time, we don't want to lose focus. The academics are important, and we are moving on to very academic years in fifth and sixth year. So these are a range of the different options that the students have to sample all throughout the year. Everybody will do English, Maths, Irish, and Modern Language. Those are considered the core languages. But these then are the Leaving Cert subjects that students can pick from. And in our case, the way we have it set it up is that all students will sample all of those subjects. So in any given period in time, you might have a student taking 3 of these subjects. They'll hold that for 6 or 7 weeks, and then they'll rotate into another 3 subjects, and then they'll rotate into another 3 subjects. So by the end of the year, they will have sampled all of those subjects. We deliberately set this up because students may have a preconception that one particular subject isn't for them, or they didn't like it at junior cycle, and therefore they wouldn't otherwise consider it at senior cycle. We want them to get a second bite at the cherry. We want everybody to sample everything, and only then should they be in a more informed position to make their choices. So this is just a quote from a parent. The context is that, once again, while the academics are not the be-all and end-all, they do tend to make life easier. Certainly, to avoid having to go back later on in life and try to pick up some of the pieces that you could have avoided had you, suppose, taken it a bit more seriously in fourth year itself. And as I'm finishing up at this stage, I just want to come back to myself. While I am passionate about fourth year and everything that it offers, I do think in relation to study, we can be doing a lot more for the students. So I myself, I'm very interested in learning, learning about the science of learning. And in this case, a simple quiz that I quite often offer to students is just simply throw out different methods of study and ask students to be able to pick which are the more effective and which are the least effective methods of study. And quite often what we've found the world over, not just King's Hospital, not just Ireland, is that the most popular forms of study also tend to be the least effective. So somewhere throughout the year, I'd like to just, maybe not as a formal program, but constantly just harp back to this, that we're preparing people for senior cycle. We should at the very least be able to say what is an effective form of study, what is an ineffective form of study, and why. So we look at the science behind it. And this is just a website I would have put together a few years ago. It's called learningishard.ie, because the bad news is learning is hard. We tend, when we're going to study up in our rooms, we tend to look at the easiest possible ways of studying. That becomes our default form of studying. But just like becoming better as an athlete, becoming better as a musician, quite often the easiest route is not the best route. So we want to look at that in a little bit more detail. I mentioned the portfolio earlier on. Most students take 5 portfolio periods a week. This is an opportunity where the student gets to reflect on the year, get reflecting on their different workshop, on the trips, on the challenges that they have encountered, and what they can do to improve. Reflection itself is quite a difficult skill to instill in students, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes the buy-in from the students. So we give a lot of time to developing this. The student develops their own little website called the TY Portfolio, and within that they put in all the reflections and mementos of what they have covered over the course of the year itself. We encourage students to look, or we encourage parents to look at that as much as possible throughout the year and to encourage the students to do it. With that, that comes to the end of the presentation. At any stage, you can follow me you contact me via the email address there. There is a school Twitter account, which you can also see there if you want to follow that. Apart from that, I look forward to seeing the students. The final message I want to give is that I mentioned this idea of a comfort zone. Whether or not transition year is successful depends primarily on the student. If it's something that they just want to wander through and do as little as possible, chances are they will be successful in that. If they want to engage in transition year and get the very most out of it, they will find any number of different teachers who will help them as much as they possibly can, but the student has to commit to that, and the earlier they do so, the more successful their year will be. Thank you very much for paying attention for the last 20 minutes or so. I look forward to meeting you all in September and hopefully getting to meet not just the students, but the parents also. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.